Welcome to week 2, day 6 of the summer 2025 database-driven web development course. Today, we're going to kind of go over basically we're going to do a code along with the lab 102. And, obviously I'm not going to be doing the whole lab for you, but kind of want to help you get started on that. And because it's pretty extensive, this is a lot to do. It's a lot of knowledge is needed and everything, so it's going to be kind of very challenging for you this week. So just kind of want to point that out. If you can get through this, though, you'll be in a good spot going forward. Okay. So the first thing, kind of just want to discuss here. So yesterday, towards the end of the lecture yesterday, we went ahead and the students that were online with me went ahead and retrieved their coupon for the Google Cloud credits. So I also have a link to this in the lab assignment, and I think it's in my email as well. So you need to go to that. And if you do go to that, opened up here just real quick on that. So it's a little different for me than you guys because I'm an instructor. You guys are students, but so for you put in your first name, your last name, and your school email, and it has to match. So you just want inside Rankin. The two options are edu and inside Rankin. Yours is inside Rankin email, so make sure that you do this. Okay. And then continue through that. Okay, continue through that process. The students that were online with me yesterday successfully made it through this part, so that was not a problem. And then the next thing you want to do is go ahead and click on the Google SDK, follow that through. And as far as that's concerned, one thing you want to make at the end, it kind of does initialization type stuff. You want to make sure you follow that all the way through because it kind of gets things set up for you. So you're accessing the right, because it's going to be kind of connected. It's going to kind of be connected to your cloud account. So when you do a deployment, it knows where to deploy it, right? And we'll look at that a little bit here in a little bit when we go ahead and deploy that. And then also go ahead and download Postman. Postman is an application that's used to basically do API calls, be able to talk back and forth with your application that's running within Visual Studio Code, and you can talk back and forth to that. It can be used way well beyond that as well, but that's just one way to do it. Okay, that's one feature, one use case, so to speak, for Postman is to do that with your development environment. Okay, so next I'm going to go ahead and kind of want to talk about the project folder. We'll go through that. I'll follow all these steps here. And then when we get done with this, so for right now, I'll discuss the front end a little bit, but I'm thinking maybe I'll just create a separate little video. And then also, I need to create something for the written test as well. So I'm planning on doing that, and hopefully I have that to you by the end of the day Wednesday, if not, or very early Thursday morning. So, all right. So let's go ahead and get started on this. So the students that are online with me, you might want to kind of follow along with this. So first I'm going to go to my repository. And then under my repository, and this is very important, and I mentioned this yesterday, but these lab assignments, a lot of these lab assignments are all part of your final project. So you're going to want to kind of actually, you're going to want to be committing those to your final project directory as you go along. Okay. And you're not going to be creating lab directories under your final project. You're just going to be creating the code for your final project. And then when you do a commit, it's a good idea maybe to label it, lab 0101 or, 0102, whatever, and the different labs. Just, it helps you and myself as far as grading, and it helps you as far as keeping things together in your mind, what you're doing. Okay. So obviously right now in the final project, there's really basically nothing here. So what I'm going to do is right click this. This is the common way I do it. Obviously you can do this within Visual Studio Code. And then I'm going to go ahead and do open with code. And so now we have a final project directory. Yes, I trust the authors. Obviously, you can kind of delete that. It doesn't matter, but that's there. So this is the final project code. And so the first thing what we're going to do on this is we're going to build out a, it's basically your front end first. Okay, we're gonna build out a front end first. So we got a front end and we got a back end. Okay, and first we're going to do the front end. So what we're going to do here on this is first we're going to go to a terminal. Do new terminal here. Okay. Make sure, a lot of what's important, especially when we're doing these exercises, doing these assignments, really be cognizant of where you're at within a directory structure. It's very important, especially when we're going to be doing things where we're going to have like, package.json files, which kind of helps with configures your application. We're going to have like two of them. We're going to have one for the front end. We're going to have one for the back end. And you have to make sure there's going to be different things that you're going to run commands that are going to execute based on that package.json file. And it depends on where you're at. So you kind of really got to think, where am I at? Am I in the front end or am I in the back end? And so, just kind of really try to get into that mindset. So we're going to start here in the final project directory. And let me get my list of commands just so I don't make a mistake here. And I know the students that had me last semester have already done this because they did a couple different React apps. And this is basically, this is Vite. Vite is basically it's a build tool. It's a build and configuration tool. And it's a way to build kind of a basic app from the beginning. Okay, it's kind of gives you all the little pieces that you need to build an app. And Vite will do more than just React apps, but for us, that's what we're going to be choosing is React. So here I got npm create Vite latest. I'm going to hit enter here. And it's going to ask for a project name. Just do front end here. Or do I do the, sorry. Is this, I forgot if this is going to create something. Yeah, I probably didn't want to do it that way. But here, that's all right. Let me look and see what this does. I've forgotten. Yeah, okay. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to delete this. I apologize there. So here, let's try this again. So npm create Vite latest. And in here, not that you can't do this differently, but it's just, just to make sure we're all on the same page, it's probably best. So we're just going to call project name called front end here, okay? And then that's what I was going to do at the beginning. Then I thought that was kind of like a second part of the questionnaire here. And then we're going to do React, and then we're going to do JavaScript, okay? And now we're going to go ahead and CD to the front end. And then and there we're going to do npm install. And this is just going to basically build that all out for you. Okay. It takes a minute. It's very quick, a lot quicker than it used to be. These later versions of Vite are much quicker than they used to be. And then here we can just go ahead and run the npm run dev. It tells you up here. So we're just going to go npm run dev. Okay. And to show you that before I run that. So what's important here, it's created all these files. Okay. And then whenever you're doing run, you should be thinking about run is doing something within the package.xml. Whenever you got npm run, it's doing something within the package.xml, the package.json file. Okay. So if you open that package.json file in here, okay, you can see it's got dev, it's got build, right? And these are the two. We won't be making really many changes to this. There's really not. It's really not necessary or needed. There'll be some things, okay, but for the most part, at least for right now, for quite a long time, there's not much we're going to be changing right now. But basically, the two things we're going to be concerned about today is dev, which basically it starts a little server, okay, and it's just going to show this basic code that's there, and the other one is build, okay, and that's going to build us the static content, okay. And we're going to actually, and I'll show you how we're going to actually be deploying that to the Google Cloud as well. So right now we're going to just do node package banner run dev. And then if I click on this, okay, it was just a little delayed there. So here's basically the application that's created. This is just like I said, this is just a basic app, basic configuration that Vite does. And if this works like this, then you did everything right. And it's pretty basic, and that should not be too much of a problem for you. Okay. So now we do that. One thing I do want to let you know is sometimes if you kind of start a server multiple times, sometimes it happens. We've all done it. So, like if I try to run this again, you'll notice the difference. Well, here it's going to tell you missing a dev script because we're in the final project. Oh, because I didn't go there yet. But if we go back to the front end here, and then I try to run this dev script again, it's already running in this other terminal over here. Right? It's already running there. If you run this again, and sometimes you got to be careful because it can get kind of confusing for you. But if I run this again, it's gonna run. It's gonna create a separate one. You'll notice, but it's gonna basically increment the port number, right? So the port number over here was 5173. One here is 574. And now you got two of them running. And I know that there's times that students have had problems with things, basically because they've got things open that they didn't realize are open, and can kind of cause some problems sometimes when you do developing. So you kind of want to make sure you kind of close them. So Control C here, that'll kill that one, and then here we're going to hit Control C here, and so that closes that one too. All right, clear screen. All right, so now we've got our final, in our final project directory, we have this front end. Okay. And so the next thing we want to do is, this is our front end code. We're going to minimize that. We can just kind of get rid of this. And then here, I can go ahead and do a new file. Well, actually, let me do this. So I want to go back. So what we're going to do here, we got a front end. Now we're going to do the back end. So we want to make sure we're in the final project directory, not the front end directory. Okay. And we're going to do, npm init. And then it's asking for a package name here. I think I'm fine with that. Version, description, you know, entry point index.js. And the entry point is very important. You want to make sure, because we're going to create a file in this directory called index.js. If you end up creating a different file, it needs to match what's in the package.json file, because it's kind of, that's how, when we deploy it, it needs to make sure that that matches. Okay, and I'll show you that again here in a minute. So I'm fine there. Test command, I'm fine. You can put your Git repository in here. That's fine. You probably shouldn't just really go through all of these. I do too much probably. And I always put an MIT. It has to be uppercase. And there you go. And so now you got this package.json file. Okay. Now, probably the first thing we're going to want to do here on this. So we're going to, for this one, we're using, in the past, we used the MJS, the module.js files. For this, we're just going to do the regular JS files, okay? Not that it really matters, but one thing we're going to need to do here on this, though, is we have to, when we're doing that, we need to make sure that we use type module, okay? If we were using the MJS files, we don't have to put type module, okay? But because we want to use the ESM modules as opposed to the common JS. If we don't put type module, we're automatically using common JS. And really the way everyone's doing it nowadays, and the preferred way and suggested way, is to use the ESM modules. So when you ever have just a regular .js, you need to have type.module in here, okay? So we're going to do that. Now, a couple other things we're going to do as well. In the scripts here, we're going to want to start this. We're going to want to do a start here. And node server. Actually, we want this to be index.js. And then the reason this is red is because we don't have a comma up there. And then here we're going to go ahead and do, let's call this start dev here, start.dev. We got that. Let's save that. All right. So why is that complaining there? I don't know. All right, that's good now. All right, so we added a type of module since we're going to be using a JS file. We have a start, and this is basically for starting our backend. Okay, over there in Vite we had that Vite dev, and then we got a start dev. This is for really kind of NodeMon offers some functionality that's helpful within that's helpful within a development environment. So. But you can run start or start dev within your development environment. But this is just a other option here. Okay. So next thing we're going to want to go ahead and do in here is create a new file, and we're going to call this file index.js. All right. And then in here, let's see here. So our index.js. The first thing we really want to do, and here we want to import. So we're going to be using like we talked about Express yesterday. This is for our backend, right? So our backend is going to be Express. So we're going to import Express from Express, just like that. Okay. We're not doing Mongoose right now, and we're going to import. Let's import .env from .env, okay? And then for the .env, you have to do a .env.config, okay? All right, I put that in there. I didn't want it to, but that's okay. And here, let's also import, debug. All right. So within Express, within this, there's some functionality that's available for like doing different kinds of debugging statements. Okay, so what we're going to do here on this, we're going to do a debug server, because this is basically our server here, and we're going to do like this. Okay. And the next thing, okay, and we want to go ahead and do that. So, you know how we did created our own server in Node? Well, we're actually going to be creating a server here in Express, right? It's just going to be done a little differently, okay? A couple other things we're going to do. So what's going to happen is there's going to be requests coming in. So the big thing, you know, one of the main functions of Express is kind of a router. It basically things come in for, you know, requesting things, and things go in and out, right? In and out. You know, requests come in, responses go out, right? It's all about requests and responses. So one thing we want to do here is we got an app, which is an instance of Express is app, right? So we're going to do app here, and we want to do this use. We do want to do that one too, so I'll keep that, okay? And then we also, and basically for this JSON stuff, it's if you've got a JSON format, right, where you've got, let's say, name, Jim, value, whatever, right? If you got name, value pairs and stuff like that, objects, then it'll handle that here within Express, okay? The other one here is this Express URL encoded, and what this does is, you know, if you recall, you know, we kind of looked at this a long time in HTML, but sometimes, you know, within a URL, you might have spaces in that. Well, you can't send spaces within a URL. So you have to encode that, right? So you use like percent 20 and ampersand 20%, right? Those kinds of things. So it's kind of an encoding for URLs because you can't have spaces in there, right? There's certain special characters you can't have in there, all right? And so you kind of have to escape them and use URL encoding to do so, all right? So when you go ahead and do this, then it will go ahead and handle your URL being encoded, okay? So then the next thing we're going to do here, we are going to So instead of, you can actually run, you know how we ran the front end, we used the vite dev to just run the front end. We took a look at it, right? We ended up, killing our servers there, but we took a look at it. So you can run your front end from there, but there's actually a way that you can merge your front end with your back end, okay? So to do that, what you need to do is include your static code from your front end. And so let me show you that. And I know the students have had me before. We kind of already did that before. So, but let's just go ahead and do that real quick. So I'm going to go here. I need to go down here. Like I said, you always got to look at where you're at in the terminal. So we're in final project. I want to go back to the front end here. Okay, and in the front end, we're going to look at the package.json file there. And in there, we've got we already ran dev, so we could see how that would run there, right? Just the front end. And we also have this build. So we want to go ahead and run that. So we want to do npm run build. And what this is going to do is it's going to create it's going to create a dist directory. And this is going to be basically it's everything that's in this front end. It's going to build it and put it, I want to say everything that's needed to run it in a browser, right? Because this is basically a React app. This is a React app, and to run a React app can run in the browser by itself, right? But it has to be be in the right format. Basically, it's got to be in a format that the browser understands, and basically that's CSS file, an HTML file, and JavaScript, right? So things that the browser understands. Okay, this browser is not going to understand all this stuff here, right? It's only going to. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to do a build here. Okay, and it's very quick. So it created this dist directory, and in this dist directory, you have assets. Okay, you have an index. Your assets is going to be, let me make this a little bigger, CSS file, JavaScript, and it has this kind of little image thing, I guess. Yeah, right there, right. Obviously, we can get rid of that. We're just included that. If we could have deleted that within here. Later on, we're going to delete some of the stuff out of here, okay? But for right now, we're not going to worry about that. But so your assets is your CSS file, JavaScript file, and some images could be here as well, all right? And then we have our index.html file, okay? And this is just the basic file that was created from the beginning, okay? So that's your dist directory. So now, okay, let's go back to our back end. We're in our front end. Let's just go cd ... We're going back one directory. We'll do a CLS to get rid of some stuff. So now we're back there. Let's close this. You don't need that anymore. Close this. Clean this up a little bit, make it a little easier. Okay, so we're back here. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to call in our front end. And this way we're going to actually be able to run our back end and our front end together, okay? And that's, in some cases, you'd want to do that. Other cases, some complex type applications, a lot of times they're going to be separate. Your front end is going to be your front end and your back end is going to be back end. It's going to be separated. It could be run on different servers, everything else, okay? So we're going to do use here, and we want to do express static, but we need to change this one. Let me see, does that look right? Yes. So here, though, we want to do front end and dist. Okay, so front end, you have to make sure that's spelled right, and your dist directory /dist. So this is actually going to like call that in, okay? It's going to kind of like bring that in, so to speak. All right, so we've got that now. What else here? So the next thing we want to do is create a GET request, just like it's trying to do right here. And let's do /API. Okay, and then here, hold on a second here. So next, we want a port. So let's do a port here. And what we're going to do here is, and basically what this is saying is, if this exists, use this port, right? Process env, that means you use an env file. We don't have an env file right now, but if we do have an env file, read it from there. If it isn't, if that's not available, use 3000, right? So that's our port. And then what we want to do is we have to listen. We have to have for a server, you have to have a listener that's listening on a port for a request coming in, okay? So we want to do app listen port, just like that. Server is running on port, and then let's do HTTP localhost port. All right, so now we've got a listener that's listening on this port 3000. Then after that, we want to go ahead and create our API. We want to create a route. Okay, we're creating, and this is what we're doing is we're basically creating a route. And then in here, so what we're going to want to do is we're just going to do, so we have a request coming in, okay? And then sometimes you want to do some things with that request. You want to check it, see if it's valid, whatever, okay? And you want to send back a response. So we're going to go ahead and send back a response here. And I'm not going to use that one. And then we're going to do, and here maybe we just go ahead and do, from the, let's say, backend server, okay? And we need to close this out here, don't we? So, all right. So that's that. That looks good. Let's see, is there anything else we really need to do here? All right. So we imported Express. We import .env, debug, okay? We have to do a .env config. It's necessary for this, okay? Here we created a debug server, which we'll be using that later. Well, we're using it right here, debug server, right? And it just gives you a different kind of a console log message. So you do different ones depending on where you're at, so that when you've got maybe 4 or 5 different files, you'll have a bunch of different log messages, and then you can see which file it's from in that. Okay, it's a nice little tool to use. Makes things easier for you for debugging purposes. All right, so we've got this. So now what we're going to do here, so we're in the final project. We've got our index.js. Let's go ahead and make our front end small. So our front end has our dist directory. We brought that in, right? We brought that in. This is kind of our back end, okay? The index.js user.js file, but we're going to be doing some other things within here too. We're going to be creating some folders. That's where we'll be putting our different routes. We're not going to do all of our routes in here. Okay, this is kind of just the entry point, and then we'll have to import other things into this. This thing will grow, okay, for the final project, or it's going to grow throughout the course here. We'll have some other folders as well that we'll be actually bringing in things. This is kind of the main entry point, right? So we're going to go here back to the package.json file. We have our node.js. So we're just going to go ahead and run that start command here. And so we want to do, like I said, you always got to make sure you're in the right directory. So we're executing this from our back end. So we want to be in that root final project directory, and we want to go ahead and do npm npm run start. I'm kind of wondering why. It's not what I expected there. Let me take a look at this real quick. Well, the biggest thing is had to make sure that I ran the npm. Let me just kill this real quick. Make sure that you run the npm install nodemon. Okay, npm install nodemon. You might not be able to see it with my thing there. My image at the corner. I'll forget about that sometimes. npm install nodemon. I already did it, but I'll do it again because I had that forgot to do that. And actually, maybe we just go ahead and do this as well. npm. I'm wondering if something's pointing to something old for me. And then let's do npm install debug. All right. So then so let's go ahead and do npm run start dev here. Okay. And then in our browser, if you go, I'm going to have to look at why this isn't printing. I expect this to print. I don't know why it's not printing out here. So starting, just saying starting here, but I'll look at that. But here it went ahead and started. And if I end up going and putting API here, it'll say hello from the backend server. So it is working. Some reason my things aren't printing out correctly. I'll look into that. But here's the front end. And then if we do the /API, it's showing you hello from the backend server. So I didn't know if you guys that are on live with me are coding this at this point. Okay, so everybody, two guys that are online with me, got everything working. Seems to be some little problem. I have to look into it. I can't see what it is, but for some reason this isn't showing here. This should be showing this message. And if I actually change this real quick, if I change this to console.log and run this and save this, you can see it's working here for just some reason, something to do with this logging statement. So I'll have to look into that and find out why that's happening. But everything is working. Just to make sure here. So basically we're here, and then if we do /API, hello from backend server. Okay. All right, so since we got that working, what I think we want to go ahead and do now is just to kind of do our first deployment out to Google Cloud with this. So I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop this and clear the screen. So we do want to talk about Google Cloud a little bit. So I'm sure when you set this up, like I said, it's probably different for you guys than me. So I actually kind of did this yesterday, in a different folder, just to make sure everything works here. And so like we're going to create a different project here for us. But this is the one I created yesterday just to test it. By default, if you come into your console, so your console should be whatever your username that you did to create your account, you should have that. And maybe the guys that are on with me can validate that they can get to the Google Cloud Console, the console.cloud.google.com with their account. Because you should be able to come in here and like for mine, here's for this project. Okay, and if it's always going to select one, so when you come in here, this is kind of what it is. You come over here and you look at billing for that, all right? And so if I look at billing, it's going to actually show billing account for education, and that's what you should have too, right? So you want to come into your Google Cloud account. Let me just get rid of this to make sure this is probably what you should see default coming in. And by default, there's going to be a project that's here. And so let me actually change mine. I have multiple accounts, which doesn't help. So, okay, so here's my ranking one. And so you come in here, and by default, you're going to have some project, okay? We're going to want to create another project, okay? We're going to create another project. So let's go to dashboard. Okay, so you just can come in here, go to your search and type in new project here. And right here is choose create a project. So here you need to have a unique name. So what we can do here for this, let's call this issue tracker. Okay. And you can only create so many projects. I don't know what your number is. I think mine might be a little bit more for your credits. But so basically, I'm creating a new project called Issue Tracker. You can call it something similar. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but I'm calling mine Issue Tracker. Okay. And then go ahead and hit Create. So this is going to be my project ID. It's going to give you it's going to kind of create a different project ID here. Okay, yeah. So select project, okay. And you just want to make sure you come in here and so now that that's selected, you've got this issue tracker and you've got a number here, right? It's going to generate a number behind that, right? So issue tracker, that number. You can come in here and just make sure you come here and go to billing and make sure that obviously, if you don't have more than one, you had a credit card, you don't want to use a credit card, you don't want to be charged. But, make sure billing account for education's there and you're good, right? And then you can kind of come back here and go back to the dashboard again. Just go overview. Dashboard, right? And then, so here you basically want to go ahead and copy this project ID, right? You can go to project settings, probably another place you can go. I think you got a little thing you can copy this here, don't you? Whatever. But you want to copy this ID here, okay? And now that you have that, let's go ahead and go back to the console, okay? And so we're in the final project directory, so that's good. And let me make sure I do this. So I ran this command just to make sure this gcloud auth list, okay? And if I hit enter here, so here's my active account. So just to make sure that you've got your account set up. So this should be this should be your inside ranking one, right? So make sure that's set, okay? So the next thing you want to go ahead and do, okay, is run this command here. You want to run so you might want to change your, this gcloud config set project, right? And then you had your whatever you call the issue tracker or whatever, and obviously it puts a little it puts a number at the end usually to be a unique name, right? So you want to do it like that, gcloud config set. Hopefully you can see that with my little image down there is sometimes in the way. And then go ahead and hit enter there. Okay, updated property core project. Okay, so that's your active account for that. Then what you want to go ahead and do then is this gcloud run deploy. Now this command like this run deploy kind of sounds familiar. This isn't stuff that's defined in our in our package or JSON file. These are just when we downloaded that Google SDK, these are the commands that are part of that, right? And so here you can call it what you want to call it here, but I'm going to call mine issue tracker dash service. Issue tracker run deploy issue tracker dot service. I think that's the same thing I called it before, and I hope that's not going to cause a problem when I was did this yesterday. But I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here. And why is it complaining here now? Deploy from source. To deploy a container, use that. Final project. All right, let me see what's going on here. Deployment's always a challenge. Actually, yeah, this didn't fail. It just asked me to verify the source code. I thought it just stopped there. So it asked me to verify the source code. So I just hit enter, and then it's going to ask me if I want to enable the following APIs. And so I'm going to go ahead and put in a capital Y here and hit enter. It's going to enable those on the project. Some of this takes a little bit, okay? And here you want to go ahead and create your region. So for me, I'm going to choose 34 and hit enter. So what this does here is there's different regions. So obviously if you've got an application that's running all across the country, or actually running, it could be running across the world, or, you may have an app that's just in Europe, right? In Western Europe or in Eastern South America. And you could, you can choose that where it's going to kind of run closer to where your user base is, okay? And so for us, our user, it's just us. Our users for our stuff is just here centrally in the central location, right? So we can just choose that one. Obviously, if you've got an application that's you know, across the country or actually a worldwide application. There's lots of different lots of different options with Google to be able to do things like that, and obviously there's always a cost involved in a lot of that, right? For what we're getting, you know, we got free credits to do things, right? But you know, there's a limit to what we can do, right? So here I'm going to choose 34. Hit enter. Please enter that to make this the default region. Run. Okay. It's just telling you can make this a default region for everything. For right now, we won't worry about that. Okay. Do you want to continue? We're going to hit yes. Allow unauthenticated innovations. Yes. Yes. And this is probably going to run for a little bit. So I'm going to pause for a minute. Okay, so one of my students got it working. The other one is in the process of getting it working. Something strange is happening with mine. So, you know, I know this is a challenge. Obviously, it's a challenge for me too. Did want to kind of point out some things because actually I got this working fine yesterday, and I don't know if maybe it's a configuration thing for me that I'll have to look into. Okay. But so for, let me see, let me pick, because I got this working here with this one. And so if I choose that, and then I can go to Cloud Run. So what we did, I kind of really didn't mention this. So when we did that deploy, we deployed to what's called a serverless environment. And Cloud Run is a serverless deployment. And what that means is, so like in a, you know, a more traditional type server environment, you've got you got an application that's running usually on server software, web, you know, has web application software and you know, different stuff like that. And when it's running all the time. It's there constantly listening. It's kind of like racking up charges. You know, maybe not much if nothing's hitting it, but just it being there running always just racks up charges. And that's why, you know, a lot of people who, you know, early days of the internet, and, you know, I'm not even early, still to this day, they have sites out there, some little sites that's running on a server, even if it's GoDaddy or this or that. You know, that thing's sitting there running all the time, right? So usually you're going to be charged something all the time, right? The thing that's great about like a serverless environment, with a serverless environment, if something isn't hitting your URL, it's kind of sitting there in a dormant type state. And that's why sometimes when when you end up hitting this different times, if it sits long enough, it'll be kind of in a dormant type state. And once you hit it, it'll take a little bit, and then it'll pop up. And then every subsequent type access to that will be very quick. Okay. But the whole thing about serverless is you're only charged when it's actually being used. Okay, which is great. What's great for new development and for developers, you know, and if you want to do, you know, if you're smart and know how to really handle the cloud, there's a bunch of stuff that's free and has free tiers and or low cost tiers that you can do a lot of stuff for very cheap if you really know what you're doing. And so, you know, the whole serviceless stuff that really started with cloud computing, okay, and all the big cloud providers, AWS, Google, Azure, which is Microsoft Azure, Amazon AWS, and Google Cloud, all of those, and there's other cloud providers that usually have a, you know, but them are the big three. When we talk about cloud, that's what you're usually talking about, one of those. But they all have serverless environments where you can kind of do the same thing, okay? And that's really the whole point of serverless is, you know, but not for every application that's a good idea. But for the stuff we're doing, it's an excellent idea, right? Obviously, we're getting free credits, but, you know, the whole purpose is that it's only racking up charges when it's being used. So, but here's mine that I kind of deployed yesterday. I'm not sure what's going on with mine today. we'll have to take a look at that. I have multiple accounts, and I'm wondering if that's causing a problem. But I'll probably just go ahead and run another video, a separate video, just to review this all, because I know that it can be confusing. But this is the one from yesterday that I deployed, and then so this is the front end, and then if you put the /API, you should see hello world from the back end, right? So like I said, I will go ahead and spend a little time, make sure I got that down. And I think my problem is more because of my specific configurations. One of the students got it working, kind of did the same thing I did. But I'll do a separate video on that so that you guys, so it's less confusing, because I know I was kind of all over the place on this. So, all right. So now, let's get back to kind of the assignment here. Let me bring that up, the lab again. So, originally I mentioned that I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to do a quick video on, a few different things here. One, I'm going to do a quick video on just the deployment stuff. Two, I'm just going to do a quick video on the front end type stuff. Okay, even though we've got it there, but you're going to have to create this here, and I'm just going to go ahead and just do a quick video on this. And this don't have to be a specific way, don't have to look like this. You don't have to spend a lot of time on this, okay? And but I'm going to just do a quick video on this as well. And then obviously I'm going to do a video on the written test as well. So them are 3 videos I'm going to do. But for right now, we're going to kind of skip through some of this. So what you can do here is we're going to go through this the user one here, user.js, okay? We're going to go through this. And we're going to use like Postman to test these. So you can start with this and take this and code this in there, and then stuff that I'm going to go over here that we can add to that, okay? But the bug stuff, you're going to have to do that on your own, okay? You have to do that on your own. But so we're going to kind of come in here and go down to, for this, we're coming down here to the user stuff, right? So let's see, first one's up here. Login. No, not login. Not register. This is a big assignment, and I know this is going to be a big challenge. So we have list first, right? Yep, list. This is right. Full array of users as an array list. Okay, so let's get back to our code here. Okay, so the next thing here we're going to do, so our front end, we're just going to kind of let that sit for now, right? So everything here in basically the root directory, this is all part of our back-end service, right? So here, we're just going to create a new folder and call this routes, R-O-U-T-E-S. And then in there, let's go ahead and create another folder, call this API. Okay. So now we have this routes API. And inside of there, let's create a new file called user.js. Okay. And then in that screenshot, it's in that lab assignment. It's basically is a good thing to start with. And so here is all of that. Okay. So the first one we're going to do here is list. And this is going to return a user array. So we have this user array, okay? I'm going to kind of speed through some of this just so we're not doing this for hours on end. So I am going to drop some code here. Let me grab some stuff here. So we got this a users array. I'm just going to call it users though. That's okay. Should I just... All right. All right. I'm going to... So this is just, so what we're going to be doing this later, we'll be getting this data from Mongo database when we set that all up later. This is just kind of, just some test data for us to use where we got 3 different users. Okay. So we have this here. So here's our users. This is how you write so this is going to be a list, and this is just going to return all the users in the JSON format, okay? Now, let's see, something else I need to change here. So we're using this router. So one thing here is you have to export. It's all about importing and exporting. You're exporting this module, so to speak, right? So you have this defined as a user router. So export router, which is what you've defined here, okay? So you're exporting what you've got defined here, basically what you created here, right? You created an instance of an express router called router, okay? And that's what you're using for all of your different paths, right? And then you want to make sure that you return that as a module, and we're giving it a name and we're calling it user router, okay? So what we want to do here in our index.js file is, let's see, we can leave that. That should be fine. What we want to do here is we want to do this import like this. All right. Let's move it past there. Need to kind of clean a little bit of this up actually, but that's okay. All right. So let's see here, from .routes API user, okay. And so what else we'll have to do as well is include this like this. Okay. So it's basically going to it's going to be looking for this path, and then for this path, it's going to use this user router. Okay. So this path here is associated with user router, and user router is this right here. Okay. So let's see what we got here. I think we've got this user, we've already got express there, router. We should be good there. Okay, so let me try something. Let's run. We're going to do npm run start dev. So we're in our final project. So we're in our back end, right? We're not in the front end. We're going to run our npm run start dev. All right. And then let's see what happens. It's not happy with something. User router from there. Import user router from there. User router. user router, import user router. Okay, so I just had a kind of a typo there. I didn't have user router on it. It was typos for uppercase, lowercase, or something. But you just have to make sure that the import here, your use here, and this is the same. And then also it's the same as what you've got here at the bottom, user router. So make sure that that's the same. I'm not sure if I had a space or what, but it didn't like it. So I just kind of cut and pasted it all back over there, and everything was fine. So then when I go ahead and bring up my my server, localhost 3000, and now what you should be able to do here is you do /list. No, actually what you'll have to do is API /user-list, and there's all the users. Okay. And I do want to show you another way to do this that we're going to be using a lot of in this course is Postman. So I'm going to bring up Postman. Okay. All right, and so I have a bunch of different things here, so don't get confused about some things I've done in the past here. I'm just going to close all of this. So you'll have to, I don't know if your first time in Postman, but bring up Postman. You probably have to log in. And the first thing you want to do, you come in here. I have things in here, but all you can do is go ahead and create a new collection. Okay, so I'm going to create a new collection, just a blank collection. And then in here, you can change the name of it. So I'm going to put in issue tracker 2025. Helps me because I'm doing different things, but you can call yours issue tracker or whatever. So I'm going to try to create everything here within issue tracker. Okay. And then I can come in here and click this plus sign, and so you'll have different options here. Okay. So you can do get, post, put. And so we're going to be doing 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. I think patch what we do. I think we do patch 2 later. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5 of them. Okay. So, but the first one's just a get, right? It's just a get. So what we can do here is, and then obviously, you're going to put in whatever your host is. And then if for some reason you change your host name for some reason, you need to update your host names in here as well, right? But for a get, it's pretty straightforward, right? You just go ahead and put it in here like this and hit send, okay? And then, as you can see, it responded with all of that, okay? And so we'll be using Postman to do all kinds of different things, updating stuff, logging in, registering, and so forth, okay? We're accessing the API, right? We're not really we don't look at this as accessing the web, like a website or anything. You're accessing the web API. In our case, our API and our page is kind of, combined together, right? Our web page, our front end, and our back end is kind of combined together. In the real world, a lot of times your API is going to be separated out, okay? But in our case, makes it a little more simpler. But think of this as you're actually accessing an API. You're accessing your back end here, right? And as you can see, you've got a 200, which is an okay, all right? Now, obviously, if you do something that doesn't exist, you're going to get a different response, all right? This is probably just going to time out here, but that's okay. Let's just cancel that. But so once you get one working and you're good, I'm going to do it again. There it is. It's good. It's returning it. And go ahead and save this. What I usually do here, I don't really want to save it as that. So click save there, and then the name you can do maybe call it user list, right? Get user list. How about get user list? It'll be important. You don't want to just save, save it with arbitrary names. Just because you're going to come in and be using this, you want to know, okay, this is my get user list, and then so you calling it that. Hit save here. Why won't it hit me? Oh, I have to choose one, and then hit save. Okay, so it's saving under here. Now you got to get user list, right? I guess you didn't have to really put the get in there because it by default puts the get in there if it's a get. Okay, so that's that. So I'm going to be, do a little cut and paste in here to move things a little forward, a little quicker. So basically here is a, let's see what I got here. User. Okay, I'm using ID, user ID equals ID. Let me change this to ID. So this is a parameter that's being passed in, okay? So we got a user ID, right? And so what we're doing is we're going to get the user ID, set that to ID, and then we're going to do a find, and then we're going to find this through this users array to find the ID, to find which one, okay? If it's good, it's going to return that. It's going to get status code of 200, just return it. If it doesn't find it, it's going to return a 404, which is not found, and send back a user not found. Okay. So let me save that. And then let me show you in Postman how we do that one. Okay. And then here we're wanting to do another one. So here's our new one. Now let's take another look at this. So we're still going to have to do API slash, user, right? But we're not going to do list. And what we're doing here on this one, see this little colon? This is actually a variable. By doing that, you're passing in a variable, okay? So you don't actually use this name at all. You're just going to pass in something in place of this. So we're going to be doing slash API slash user slash and a number, the user ID. Okay, so let's try that. And so here I'm just going to pass in a 1. And as you can see, it returned the first one back. If I go ahead and put a 2 and hit send, it'll return the second one. Let's check them all. 3. The third one. And then if I put in a 4, it's going to not found. So that works as expected. Okay. So I'm going to save this one as a, this is a, just do by user ID. Okay. So you'll be using these in the future. So right now, like I said, we're just using this array list that we created. So with this fake data, but later on, we're going to be using a Mongo database. And so you'll be bringing data back from that. And that's what will be displayed, the data that comes back from the Mongo database. Okay, so that's that one. Let's go back to our code. Okay. Okay, now we're going to do register here. And we're going to register a new user. So to save some time, I'm going to drop some code in here. All right. We can move these back. So I'll indent it way too much for me. Okay. Yeah, I'll move all this back a little more. All right, so we got if. Make sure our stuff is all lined up here. Oh, I didn't copy some stuff right. Sorry. All right. So for this, so for the register, we're doing a post. The post is going to it's going to get this from a different location. Okay, it's going to get this from the request body, and I'll show you that over in Postman. We're going to put it in a different spot in Postman. Okay, we're going to put it in a different spot in Postman. So the other one we had actually, everything was just within the URL itself, right? The same thing that, just for the heck of it, let me show you. So one thing we didn't do is that user one where you've seen this, but this works the same way. Obviously we're using Postman. There's a lot of benefit in using Postman. A lot of this stuff we can kind of do here in the browser, but Postman, as we continue on, Postman's going to help tremendously. But you can do the same thing here, right? And so that just brought back user ID 1 there, right? Just the first one. So we did everything, like I'm saying, we did everything kind of in the URL. Which is going to be different for a post. We're going to basically put this in the body of like in Postman, right? So that we can't really do in a browser URL. Okay, it can be done writing an application that passes a post request, like JavaScript, HTML, JavaScript. Obviously, you can do all that, right? But you can't do it in the URL. So here, what we're doing is we're getting a new user, because this is registering. We're registering a new user, and we're getting it from the request.body, req.body. Okay, and then we're searching for that user in our user in users. So always make sure these are little things that can kind of make sure that that's the name of your array, right? Users with an S, right? So users with an S. And we're trying to find it, see if we find it. So we're just looking for one field here. In this case, we're looking for an email field, right? So obviously you're gonna have to pass an email field, okay? So if search user, if it finds that email already in there, then it is going to go ahead and display it. Or just, if it already finds it, say user already exists. If not, it's going to add a new one. Okay. So let's go ahead and so the next one we want to do here is the register. And for that one, here for register, we're doing a post. All right. We do want to include this. So this, like I said, this one's different. We're not using the URL. We still have to use a URL. We have to use the API user, right? The first part of that, right? But then we need to do register, right? Whatever we have. Whenever we do any of these, we have to make sure. So this is going to be register. Okay, so it's going to be API user register. All right, and then we're going to have an email, password, given name. So let's just do a few of them first. Okay, so that, and then in here, what we're going to do is, like I said, we're not putting this part of the URL. We're going to put it in this body, and we're going to choose this URL encoded. Okay, and when we do key value pairs, so the first one's going to be email, and then you can put anything for all these emails, kind of for this, for what we're going to be doing here, unless you decide to do something sophisticated later on towards the end of this course. But this is just, these don't have to be real emails, right? So I'm just going to do that, and then what was the next one? Password. Now later on in this course, we're going to actually encrypt the passwords. We're going to encrypt them. Okay. So then what was it? What was the other? User given name. So a lot of times, reason we kind of start using this, in some cultures, given name, because for some cultures, the given name, it's different. First name and last name is kind of different. It's given. So using given name and family names kind of like a little more appropriate. So I'm going to do given name there, family name. I'm going to put these all in there. And then the other one is what? Role. All right. So one thing in Postman, it's important to have these checked if you don't have them checked. So let's just do this and see what happens here. Let's just see what happens here. User not found. Okay. That's true. User is not found. Because it's new. So if status email is required, where are we saying user is not found? Did I do something wrong here? Where's user not found? It's calling this one. It's because we've got this register after the user ID. Yeah, so here's a very important thing, and you can kind of learn this the easy way or the hard way. Is you must list static routes before listing the dynamic routes. Okay, so a dynamic route is where you're passing a variable in. Okay, where you're passing a variable in. So you must list static before. So let me just check. I believe that that's what's going to be the case here. I'm almost sure. Let me save this again. Because as you can see, what was it complaining about? It's complaining about user already exists. No, it was complaining about not already exists. It's complaining user not found, right? Which one was this? Helps if I go to the right one. That's register, that's the list. User ID, user not found. It was executing this, right? Just it has to do with what's you're passing in register, like we had register, and so if you have this one first, it's putting register as a variable in here. Okay, it's putting register as a variable here. Okay. Now before we just put a number, like the number one, so it found, it find number one, it used number one as user ID. It's actually using register as the ID. Okay, so that's way, but so you have to bring in all your other ones first. Okay. And I'll tell you another thing that I know I did wrong there. We'll get there. Okay, so I changed that. But to tell you the truth, I don't think I had to. And I'll show you why. I think I had this. I had this as a get and not a post. If I could have left that there, but if you ever have a get, okay, the gets always have to be before you have that dynamic route. Okay. In this case, I have a post. It wouldn't have been even. It wouldn't have never even matched in the first place because I forgot to put post. So okay, so now I'm going to do this, and it's going to do this message. Jim added successfully. Now, in reality, it's not like it adds it to this, right? This is just static. In memory, it added to it. As long as we keep memory, so the server is running, we added all of that information. It's not obviously going to display here, right? But in memory, it is there. And so like if I go back to Postman here again, and I try to send this again, it's okay, it already exists. User already exists. Okay, so register is about adding a new user. It's already in memory. So obviously, all I have to do is change the name here, and then it would do it again. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. So I want to make sure we save this one, and so this one's going to be. We're going to save this as register, I guess. We're register user, right? We're registering a user. Okay. So now we got that one. Login. So for login, so for now, let me, I'm going to move this back because I was wrong. I wasn't thinking because I had to get instead of a post. So this is fine to stay here, but list needs to go before this dynamic route because they're both gets. The post, we're good. So we got the register, right? And then we're going to go ahead after that one. We're going to go ahead and do the login. And I'm basically going to be kind of doing the same thing here. I'm going to cut and paste this for time purposes. All right. So here we're doing another post for login. We're reading from the body again. Okay, not from the URL, from the body. And so we've got a user, we've got an email and a password. That's all we need is a user, email, and a password. And so what are we doing? We're coming down here. If not, we're doing that. Else, if not that. So if it doesn't have either one, it's going to go ahead and give you a 400 status message, and it's going to give you the following message. Email or password is required. Otherwise, it's going to search for users. All right, it's going to search for users. If it finds it, it's going to run a 200. User logged in successfully. Otherwise, invalid. It's going to send invalid credentials with a 401. Okay. So I'm going to save this. Now let's go to Postman. So we got just email and password. So a new one here. I'm going to do login. And I'm going to body. Oh, good. That's still there. Yep. So we need to get rid of this. Actually, we should just delete these. So I'll leave them for now. So email and password. So I'm going to try to log in and hit send. Invalid credentials. Okay. That's because did we restart? And since we restarted, what happened to my, there it's a Jim added successfully. And I'm thinking that's why I won't be able to tell you. Okay. So the reason is, you know, when we do stuff in the, when we make these changes live here, when we're making these changes, when we're making these changes, you know, the server's automatically just refreshing. Every time it refreshes, it's going to wipe away that what's in memory there, right? And so, like I said, when we're adding this new stuff, these registers, we're adding new stuff to this user array, right? We're adding this to the user array. Okay, you don't see it, obviously, it's happened in memory, but every time we make some changes, so once you do it, you can keep using it for a while, but if you make a change to your code here, it's going to refresh it, it's going to wipe away in memory, and you're going to be back to these default ones. So that's why the first time it couldn't find that, okay? I hope that makes sense to you. So here, logged in successfully. We're still logged in. If we just don't pass the email, we'll see, you know, emails required. You know, and you want to check all of these, right? Password is required. Do them both. User logged in successfully, right? Okay. So that's that one. All right. So the next one here. So that was post, login. And then we're going to do this put. So I'm going to grab that. Okay, so here we're doing a put. So put's a little different. Put's doing the required params, user required params here, okay? So you're passing in the user. user update. Okay, let me look at something real quick here. Okay, so in this situation, we really only have like obviously we can register a user. Um, we can register a new user, but we're not giving it an ID this time. But we can update one that's already there. But basically, I'll just show you where we update a password, I guess, in this scenario. Okay, so this is doing a put. So a put's kind of a put's an update. Okay, so I'm gonna come over here in Postman, and we're gonna go ahead and do. So we're doing a put, and so here we're doing a put, and then we're doing the same thing as we did. Oh, we don't want to look at this one here. I think this put this in the wrong spot. We got some multiple things going on here. Sorry. So this was here. We're here. I can fix it later. So here, we still want to do that. And we're going to do a put here. We still want to do that like that. Well, I'm going to try something here. I don't remember. I don't think that this is going to work like I think it is. All right, so here's a password. I'm going to hit send here, and I expect that this... No, I don't want to put that here. I want it here. Password ABC. Let's see what happens here. Yep. So basically I'm passing in the ID, right? And so when we get this integrated with Mongo database, you'll have this kind of this much longer ID. So you'll include your ID in here, right? But then you'll have what you're wanting to update here, right? So here, let's just go see if we get the user list now. Let's see if that updated that to ABC. I'll be disappointed if that's not the case. There we go. Yep, password ABC. So it updated that. Okay, good. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and save this one now. Later, we're going to have a lot more in here, okay? We're just at the early stages of this. I'm going to save this. And here, I'm just going to do update user. Okay, and I don't like that because it put me in that spot there. All right. All right. All right, let's see where we're at now. So we did that. We have this delete now. So pretty much the same thing here. So this is going to be a delete. We're generally just going to have one of those. ID is here. user ID. Okay. Let's go see how that works in Postman. But here we're going to want to do a delete. And I think hit send here. User 1 deleted successfully. Let's go back and run our get user list. Hit send. And as you can see, the very first one, which was mine, got deleted, right? And then obviously, like I said, this is just in memory. You restart the server, you make changes. Obviously there, it didn't matter. But, sometimes you can be testing some of this stuff. Every time you make a change to the code, it's going to refresh the server. It's going to, it's going to kind of reinitialize memory and stuff. And for the stuff we're doing right now, just is in, temporary memory. There are other options, actually. You can create a separate file and just read that file in and use data. Other ways to do that is test case. But in this case, we're just, creating this data. And once we update certain things in this data, it's going to be refreshed back, right? So that's all of those, okay? And that should get you through the requirements for the user.js file. So you'll have to do something similar for the bug one, okay? I know this is going to be a challenge. I know this is hard. This is hard for students in the past from classes as well. So, this isn't, always easy. It's a kind of an opportunity to grow. And you'll have to learn how to kind of debug some stuff on your own. Obviously, I'm here to help you. Reach out. You need help on any of this. But, spend a little time trying to figure things out, all right, if you can. So what you're going to also have to do is you're going to have to do the bug one. And I'm going to go ahead and spend a little time making sure I got that deployment stuff set. And I'll go ahead and include commands and everything so you guys can get that working. So we'll get the deployment to GCP done, taken care of. So I'll do a separate video for that, like I already said. I'll do just a quick separate video on the front end. So real quick, I can mention this. So in here, basically what you're going to be changing for the most part is going to be this file here. Is where you're going to be including the code, the HTML for creating that mock-up screen with your users and that, okay? But this is going to be very basic. You don't have to do much with this. This doesn't have to be fancy. The most important thing of this exercise, the most important thing of this lab is to, get things configured for the server, right? So that you got your front end and you got your back end working. And then get your user.js file. Make sure you can test it using Postman, and the same thing with the bug stuff. Okay. That's all I have for today, and I will talk to you later. Bye.